Exterior, moody forest, dusk. The last vestiges of gold sunlight rake through the tops of trees, pine and oak and ash. A boot, battered and scuffed, presses into the loam. A man, 30, kneels quietly in the bracken, his blue tricorn hat pulled low, his long blue coat crisscrossed with dark leather, belts, straps, pouches. He scans the undergrowth, muttering to himself. Claude, so nice of you poor bastards to leave such a trail just for us. Except, it's not just for us, is it? He suddenly slips the great musket off his shoulder, and brings it to his eye with a swift smoothness belying years of habit. Claude continued, to himself, y'all invited the demons to your party, didn't you? Louder. Madam, reverse POV, sighting down the musket barrel. Just beyond a pile of forest stone, a clearing, full of uniformed bodies. Footsteps crunch up from behind. A voice. A woman. Ottilie, off-screen. What's there, Claude? Claude. Oh, I think we found the special unit. Angle on Claude and Ottilie. She stands just behind him. 30 years old, thick hair piled high and tied back from her ebony face. Her well-worn blue coat matches Claude's, festooned with pouches and belts, a pair of pistols at her waist, and a musket over one shoulder. Its silver bayonet shining in the gloom. Her hair is remarkable not only for its sheer mass, but also because the left half has been shocked white as bleached bone. Ottilie, sweep the east side. I'll gather the rest. Claude, les chasseurs de cauchemar, going to work. He slips off, just another shadow in the woods. Pan with Ottilie as she heads back the way she came, revealing the shapes of other soldiers in blue coats moving quietly through the undergrowth. The scenario's about to begin. Greetings, good humans, and welcome to Tabletop Alchemy, where we're doing part 4 of our little skirmish miniseries and battle reporting a solo scenario. And we thank our patrons almost specifically for the crazy cool deck of cards we're going to use in the game today. Your support is always much appreciated. So we're playing a game of the Silver Bayonet today, the first solo scenario. In fact, this is my first time ever playing this game. Now, I've played Frostgrave and Ghost Archipelago, which are also written by Joe McCullough, and I absolutely love his stuff. My brief overview of the Silver Bayonet's gameplay experience is that it's pretty fast-paced, more so than his other games, which are already pretty lean and fast-moving themselves. And I think Silver Bayonet's extra speed has to do with the fact that there really isn't any magic to deal with. There's only one soldier type that can cast spells, and even then, there are only 4 spells that can be cast. Another mechanic that I really liked is I'll call it the melee exchange mechanic. Every time a figure attacks another in melee, you can essentially resolve 2 attack actions because Joe has created a rule set that really captures the exchange of hand-to-hand combat. Once a figure has been attacked, they get to make a choice: strike back or back off. And in today's game, you'll see, I don't think I backed off a single time. This mechanic also really keeps both players having fun playing regardless of whose actual turn it is. Well, in today's case, which is a solo scenario, I get to sort of keep playing while the monsters are taking their turns. The swinginess of the 2d10 dice math also really makes for some serious ups and downs and dramatic occurrences. This is true of his d20 based systems as well, like Frostgrave and Stargrave, and while most competitive gamers don't dig this swinginess because it makes tactical decisions harder to rely on, I think it forcibly injects cinematic storytelling into each match, which is pretty cool if you like that sort of thing. TLDR at the beginning this time? Whoa, things are already getting weird. So the video intro was just my take on storyifying the story setup Joe had written as the basis for the scenario. Essentially, the scenario states that a special unit had been dispatched to search for a lost chapel, but that unit went missing, and now our warband is being sent to find that missing unit and recover, if not any survivors, at least the orders the unit carried with them, lest they fall into enemy hands. So, Les Chasseurs de Cauchemar has gone off into the woods to track down this missing special unit, and they have just stumbled upon what looks to be the site of a battle the unit unfortunately lost, deep in the forest. The sun is setting, the shadows are stretching, and our warband is hunting for those orders amongst the remains of this murdered unit. Here's a quick rundown reminder of the members of our warband, the full details of which you can find here. The Nightmare Hunters are led by Ottilie Bastarage, our inspiring officer. She is joined by Felicia Armand, our vivandier, Vermont Descoffier, a supernatural investigator, Gaspard Gagnon, a doctor, Claude Cellier, a scout, Yolanda Scaletta, an occultist, Baptiste Moreau, an infantryman, and Brielle Pelletier, a grenadier. Now, I'm not sure how this video battle report is going to turn out. I've never produced something like this, so this is, another FFT, right? So setting up the table, this scenario calls for a 2.5 by a 2.5 foot area. My card table is 32 inches on a side, and my game mat is 36. So our playable area is essentially almost edge to edge. The scenario says to fill the table with trees and rocks and undergrowth. So I'm putting down all the terrain we made for this scenario, and I'm actually digging out some more scatter bits I had nearby. All of it foresty themed, right? Now the clue markers, of which there are 6 in total. These go down randomly at 3 distances from the center of the table, 8, 10, and 12 inches away. Each clue marker is tied to a random playing card, meaning every time we investigate one of these clue markers, we draw one of the 6 cards the special rules has instructed us to set aside. You'll see here that I've neglected to include the Ace of Spades. I only shuffled 5 of the necessary cards at the beginning, but I realized that before actually starting the game and mixed in the Ace of Spades so the clue deck is correct. Also, just a side note, you need little markers called fatigue tokens to place next to figures when they've engaged in melee combat. So I grabbed some Lego. Just these little Technic 1/2 bush parts, and they stack nicely on a Technic axle for easy access. I have light gray ones too, but figured the yellow would show up better on the table. Now the warband gets positioned all within 3 inches of the center of the table. I don't get real finicky with measurements. I'm not a technical player, remember? But yeah, 8 figures in a 6-inch diameter circle means they're kind of packed in there. Ottilie goes down first. She's got eyes on something out past that rock bridge that looks interesting. Dr. Gagnon is sticking close to Ottilie, basically focused on keeping her alive. I had this vague idea of splitting the warband into 2 smaller units, and Felice, with her inspiring attribute, will sort of head the second unit. For sure, Claude the Scout, who I've come to think of as a sniper for some reason, has clambered up onto a pillar of rock to get a solid view of the perimeter, and Yolanda tucks in here under his watchful eye. Vermont has spotted a body up on another rock formation, and he needs to investigate that. Baptiste is positioning himself ready to climb up onto the rock bridge to offer some overwatch, and Brielle has spotted yet another something interesting just a few strides to the west that she'll investigate. Now the wolves get basically evenly arranged around the table at the edges, 2 to a side. This doesn't look dangerous at all, right? Surrounded by wolves in a circle? Nah, nothing wrong with this at all. Alright, let's do this. Turn number 1. The first phase of a turn is me getting to activate half of the warband rounded down. So we're activating 4 figures. Baptiste grunts and hauls himself to the top of the rock bridge, working tension out of his broad shoulders and readying his musket as they all hear a lone wolf howl pierce the falling night. Ottilie starts moving her full 6 inches towards that clue marker. She calls over her shoulder, "Find those orders, but keep an eye on each other." Brielle strides through the undergrowth with a grimace at the answering wolf calls and steps right up to what she thought might be a discarded satchel. Gaspar follows her, creeping under the natural rock bridge and searching the shadows for threats. Now, here I've made my first mistake with the rules. I've made all the soldiers' movements prior to finishing each soldier's activation. So basically I did what's called a group activation in Frostgrave, but that's not a thing in the Silver Bayonet. I'm supposed to fully activate a figure, meaning they do all their stuff like moving and taking actions before activating the next figure. It's okay, it's just a game and we're learning. So, Brielle is moved and now uses her action to investigate the clue marker, this satchel thing she's found on the ground. Since we're investigating a clue marker, we draw a card and hope for the best. The 10 of Spades means she's found an ornate silver ramrod. We get to add 1 skill die to the fate pool. You'll see how the fate pool works in a bit. For reference, in a solo game, we start with a very small fate pool, 1 skill die and 1 power die. And when we start rolling dice, you'll see that I'm using blue dice for skill dice and black dice for power dice. There's a third type of die called a monster die, but again, in the solo rules, we don't really get to use those. Ottilie comes out from under the rock bridge to see a pair of glowing eyes in the distance. A big old dark wolf creeping towards her. She draws one of her pistols and fires, rolling a 7, plus 6, plus 2 for her accuracy stat, and taking a -1 penalty because she's shooting after moving. That totals up to 14 versus the wolf's defense stat of 12, which means she's hit it. Pistols use the power die for damage, so that's 6 damage on a wolf who's got 8 hit points. It yelps as it takes that ball right in the shoulder. Now we use little bits of cotton to signify when a figure has fired a gun, and we'll remove the cotton when they reload. That way we know which figures have loaded versus unloaded weapons, because it takes an action to load a weapon. Baptiste sees the smoke from Ottilie's pistol and sees that wounded wolf, but he also spots another wolf closing in from the west, and 2 more coming from the southeast. He barks a warning to the rest of the crew and shoulders his musket, deciding the wolf closest to Brielle presents the greatest threat due to proximity. He fires with a 9+3+1 for accuracy and -1 for moving before shooting. He just barely scores a hit with a 12, but the power die is only a 3, so more of a grazing shot. It's hard keeping a beat on these wolves in the trees as the darkness deepens. That's the first half of our warband activated. Now the enemies get to do some stuff. Despite its wounded shoulder, wolf number 1 charges at Ottilie. This behavior marking the beast as definitely somewhat unnatural, and Ottilie hastily holsters her pistol and swings her musket off her shoulder. The wolf's 6 inches of movement easily allows it to plow into her, snarling and snapping, rolling a 5+3 plus the 1 it gets from its melee stat for a 9. And as angry as it is, it's hurt, and Ottilie dodges out of its reach. She comes back from her dodge and strikes back with a vicious stab from her bayonet. That's a 10+4+1 melee for a 15, and she slams that wolf to the ground, twisting the bayonet before wrenching it out with a great gout of blood. Wolf number 2 charges the black and white-haired witch who just murdered its sister, bashing into her with a snarling fury. Rolling a 5+8+1 for melee for a 14, and Ottilie takes a massive hit from those ripping fangs, suffering 8 damage, leaving her with 5 hit points. The other wolves lope through the shadows as the moon rises. Now, our second warband phase kicks in and we get to activate all the remaining figures. Vermont Escoffier looks from the incoming wolves to the uniformed body lying on top of a rocky escarpment. His primary function is discovery and knowledge, so he quickly settles on investigating what happened to that poor bastard up there. He uses his action to sprint in order to scale to the top of the escarpment within a single turn, but he doesn't have an action left with which to investigate. That will have to wait until next turn. Yolanda Scaletta steps back behind Felice at the sight of 2 wolves inbound. She knows her place in the warband, and the front line is not it. She takes a calming breath, winces as she takes a point of damage, and utters an incantation, a prayer of harming directed at the wolf coming from the east. Failing to hit the target number of 18 for its courage check, the beast shakes its head and growls in confusion, glaring at the occultist and baring its teeth. It now suffers a -1 penalty to all its rolls for the rest of the game. Felice, holding aloft her burning torch as her short sword scrapes clear of its leather, notes Yolanda's action and the reaction of the wolf, and she charges the cursed animal. She hits with a 12 on her attack roll, inflicting 4 points of damage with a wide slash through the gloom. The wolf gnarls and strikes back, frothing, and the curse seems to affect its depth perception as it snaps well clear of the Vivandier. Muttering about being surrounded by 4-legged sharks, Claude swings his musket to aim past Brielle and fires. With his +1 to accuracy, he scores a 13 and puts a steel ball right between the wolf's eyes, and he's already reloading and searching for a new target before that wolf even falls. That marks the end of turn 1. Now, I messed up again here. I forgot one of the scenario's special rules that was supposed to happen at the start of the monster phase, rather than at the end of the turn. And I also forgot to allocate fatigue tokens. But fatigue tokens are cleared at the end of each turn, so I don't think we had any situations where they would have come into play this turn anyway. Especially since I seem to have forgotten to let Ottilie strike back during that second wolf's attack on her. Now, the special rule I'm enacting a little late here is that one of the running wolves transforms into a werewolf, and that turns out to be this one right here. So we'll swap the miniature as this wolf surges through the undergrowth and transforms under the moonlight, stretching, rising, swelling into a nightmare of murder and mayhem. Turn number 2. Baptiste reloads and fires over Ottilie's head, his 9 total resulting in a clean miss. He swears and spits in frustration. Brielle, hearing Ottilie's pained grunt, spins to her left and fires her musket. 4+9+1 accuracy succeeds with a 14, and that 9 damage drops the wolf Baptiste failed to hit. She laughs at the infantryman, shooting him a maniacal grin as she reloads. "That's another flagon you owe me, Baptiste, you clumsy bastard." Baptiste scowls at the grenadier. Okay, I messed up again. I was even looking forward to this, but I completely forgot to roll on the wolf pack event table at the end of turn 1. We're supposed to roll on that table at the end of each turn. We'll do it now. That's a 9, which is rainfall. Damn. Maximum line of sight is reduced to 12 inches, and all shooting attacks suffer a -1 for the rest of the game. That is not good. These enemies don't even have ranged weapons, so it's all us taking the penalty. Alright, thunder rolls overhead and rain starts with a light patter in the trees, then turns suddenly into a full downpour, drenching our warband. Gaspar steps up to Ottilie and works his medicinal skills to heal her for 2 hit points. Another side note I realized after the fact that this was incorrect. The doctor is supposed to not move if he wants to perform a healing action on a friendly figure within 1 inch. It's just another rule that's slightly different from other games, so we're rolling with it as we learn. Ottilie moves to investigate the clue marker, the upper torso of a ravaged soldier from the special unit that fell victim to something possibly worse than a pack of dark wolves. We draw the Jack of Spades, and Ottilie takes a silver saint medallion from around the torso's bloody neck. It's kind of a bummer that Ottilie was the one to find this artifact, because it makes all of the finder's attacks function as if they were made with silver weapons. But our officer already has a silver hand weapon and silver shot for her firearms. But hey, we get to add 1 power die to our fate pool, so that's pretty good. Alright, the monster phase kicks off with wolf number 8 rushing Yolanda, careening off wet rocks and churning up mud in its wake as it launches itself into the Vatican occultist. Oh man, that thing rolls a 2 plus 10 plus 1 for melee, which is a 13, which is also Yolanda's defense stat, which means it crushes her with maximum damage. 10 hit points from that power die. Yolanda goes down with a shriek under 300 pounds of raging wet fur and savage teeth, and blood flashes in the moonlight. Don't ask me how the moon is shining during a rainstorm. Things are getting weird out here in the gloaming. Wolf number 7 bites at Felice, but misses with a 10. That's 6 plus 4 plus 1 for melee, but minus 1 for the curse. Felice strikes back, hearing Yolanda's cry behind her, but not daring to turn her back on this thing. But Yolanda's cry distracts her enough that she misses her lunge. Both Felice and her foe receive fatigue tokens. Wolf number 6 skirts Vermont's escarpment and blurs through the rain to plow into Felicia's back. The total of 12 would normally be a miss, but Felicia's defense stat has a -1 penalty now due to the fatigue token, so that 12 becomes a hit, and the wolf tears 5 hit points of blood out of her with its ferocious jaws. Startled, Felice reacts on instinct and rage at the surprise attack, and she whips around with an unexpected fury and strikes back with a staggering counterattack. 18! And also causing max damage with that 10 on the power die. She nearly cleaves that wolf in 2 with a massive swing and a apoplectic battle cry, gore spattering across her feral features. The werewolf bounds silently through the rain towards Felice, intent on bringing death to this human wearing the blood of its brother. Its black claws grow in the stippled moonlight, glinting like daggers. Wolf number 4 lunges through the trees at Brielle, but misses with an 8, the grenadier ducking, before retaliating with her bayonet, rolling another 18 and gutting the beast with 7 damage. She kicks it off the end of her musket and wipes rain out of her eyes. She spits on the steaming carcass and receives a fatigue token. Vermont sidles up to the body he's been intent on investigating, and we draw a card. And holy smokes, the body rears up, a monstrous second werewolf unleashing a debilitating roar right in Vermont's face. That ace of spades, man, worst card in the deck to draw. Oh, this is a pretty bad turn of events here. Claude, on his spire of rocks, spins, raking the sights of the musket across the battlefield, and fires on the first werewolf, having heard Yolanda go down and seen Felice take on 2 more wolves. The scout's roll of 9 plus 6 plus 1 accuracy, but -1 for the rain equals 15 for a hit. And he's got silver shot loaded. So that's 6 damage to the werewolf that it cannot negate with its damage reduction attribute because of its silver allergy. It doesn't seem to notice the damage, but it's bleeding for sure, and Claude is already reloading, muttering about how he hates dogs that walk on their hind legs. Felisa Armand is in dire straits. She can't flee because the wolf behind her will force an attack no matter where she tries to move, so she just resigns herself to attacking it first. And she's tired with 2 fatigue tokens, so her attack just misses with an 11. She stumbles on a root and bites her tongue. The wolf counters with a 14 after modifiers, and oh, dude, that 10 on the power die is huge. It snarls and shreds into her, and she goes down with a terrified wail. That's the end of turn 2. Rolling on the Wolfpack event table produces a 3. 2 more wolves join the action. Holy crap, this is getting a little crazy. I'm a little worried about the Nightmare Hunters here, I'm not gonna lie. Turn 3 kicks off with, well, alright, there are things to consider on the board now. Vermont is surrounded, like a guy on a raft in the ocean surrounded by barracuda. Should he flee? Yeah, there's just no way around it. He's got to get out of here. He's cut off from the rest of the warband now. He's got to go. Got to live to fight another day. He flinches back from the werewolf and jumps/falls the 10 feet or so to the ground, landing in the mossy loam, rolls to his feet, darts 3 inches away from the rock, draws his pistol, and fires at wolf number 7, the brute that bested Felice. His roll results in a 13 total. With 7 damage, he drops that wolf. Brielle yells at Gaspar, "Get off your ass, Doc, and take out this wolf. I've done most of the work for you. I gotta get to that body over there. We're running out of time." Gaspar frowns but draws his medical saw and charges after her. He lashes at the wolf but misses with a 2 and a 5. The wolf strikes back, snapping at the flashing steel blade, but misses with an equally terrible roll of a 5+2. Each take fatigue tokens as they square off facing each other, both growling in the rain. Brielle's already tearing headlong through the woods, rolling a 19 on her sprint check to gain an extra 4 inches of movement, pushing to get to that body that might hold what the nightmare hunters are looking for. Wolf number 8 charges straight up the low cliff Claude has perched himself on, and attacks with a near miss, jaws snapping into the hem of his coat but gaining no purchase. Claude jerks around, whipping out a boot knife and jamming it right into one wild canine eye. That roll with a 10 on the power die just enough to hit, but impacting with more damage than the wolf's entire health stat, executing it in a single blow. Claude jams the knife back into its sheath and puts his eye back to the musket sights and continues scanning the battlefield. Werewolf number 1 is equidistant from Claude and Vermont, but it can't see where Vermont has gone, and it's been shot by the scout on the rock, so toward Claude it veers. On its way, the werewolf gains 2 hit points back from its quick heal ability, recovering from its wound preternaturally and horrifically fast. These things are nasty. Werewolf number 2 launches itself after Vermont, leaping from the cliff and almost reaching the supernatural investigator, but falling just an inch short, roaring its anger and hate in his face. The almost dead wolf, bleeding heavily, limply snaps at Gaspar and misses, and the doctor flinches but strikes back with a hefty roll that puts it out of its misery with 6 more damage. Gaspar takes on a second fatigue token and, chest heaving, looks around for Ottilie. Baptiste and Claude both unload on that first werewolf as it careens toward the scout, flanking musket fire thundering in the rain. Baptiste rolls a 6 and a 5, the rain penalty and his accuracy bonus canceling each other out for an 11 total, and his shot goes wide. Claude rolls complete garbage, a gout of rain flooding his face and obscuring his vision just as he fires, a shot ricocheting off the rocks. Alright, we're going to use a die from the fate pool to re-roll his power die. This werewolf is freaking me out. I think these guys might be in serious trouble. The thing heals every turn, and it can negate 5 points of damage from non-silver weaponry. So let's re-roll that power die, and are you kidding me? A 3? A 3? Good lord. Okay, I'm going to cheat right now, because I'm freaked out. I know this isn't right, but I'm justifying it because I basically forgot about the fate pool until just now, and we have 4 dice in there. So I'm retconning back to Baptiste's stupid roll, and we're gonna re-roll his power die. Oh, you've gotta be. Another 3? This is a joke, right? Come on, man, these guys are doomed. Claude, always a professional, is already reloading. Ottilie bolts after Gaspar and Brielle, rolling a crappy sprint check and gaining only 2 inches of extra movement, putting her shoulder to shoulder with the doctor. Nice work, Gaspar. She claps him on the back. Keep moving. All right. That's the end of turn 3. We're rolling on the Wolfpack event table. 5. Another wolf shows up. This is getting real hairy real fast. So the new wolf is going to show up in the center of a random table edge. So I've numbered the edges from north to west as 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'll just roll a d6 until I get a number between 1 and 4. And this wolf shows up. Oh, man. Turn 4 begins with Vermont. He's backing away from this slavering fiend when he hears a twig snap behind him. Without looking, he knows he's done for. His only hope is to flee to the south and try to outrun this nightmare. He dashes to the left and sprints for all he's worth. With an 8 on his sprint check, the rain has turned the ground to mud that sucks at his boots, and he struggles to gain just 2 extra inches of movement. As he rushes through the trees, something out of the corner of his eye catches his attention. Damn, there's something lying off to the west that could be valuable. He gauges the forest ahead of him and the sounds of the creatures behind him and makes a snap decision. Instead of veering off the map to safety, he heads towards that curiosity, fairly certain he can decide in the next few moments if he can stop to check it out or if he needs to flee for real. About to continue after her grenadier, Ottilie hears the double musket fire to the west and looks sharply in the direction of her scout and sees the massive werewolf about to scale that low ridge, and she immediately draws her second pistol and fires. With the rain and that subpar roll, she only manages to draw the thing's attention briefly. With a snarl of frustration, she bum rushes the menacing figure, holstering the pistol and unslinging the musket in one crazy action, and leaps with a rabid battle cry, and rolls a 20 total! Holy cow! 1 point shy of absolute maximum damage. Her silver bayonet flashes through the rain, her bared teeth a bright promise of righteous fury as she guts that werewolf from sternum to throat, laying its black heart bare and sending it back to the mud. What an epic scene! Claude yells to his commanding officer and savior, "Another one, madame! To the east!" And he readies his aim, blinking more rain out of his eyes. Brielle races up to the body she'd seen, rolls it over, pats it down, looking for a satchel, an envelope, anything. We draw the next card, and yes! She finds the missing orders! Success! She snarls as she rips them free and yells as loud as she can, "I got 'em! Get to safety! Retreat, you bastards!" Brielle's a peach, ain't she? Vermont's new wolf chases after him, hissing through the rain, snapping at his heels, followed closely by the bellowing and baying werewolf. The two new wolves coming from the southwest each go after different targets they can see. One after Gaspard, the other hunting Baptiste, who's standing tall and angry atop the bridge of rock. Hearing Brielle, Baptiste runs to the edge of the rock and leaps to the ground, landing next to Gaspard, who starts to head towards the hollering grenadier, but stops to keep an eye on Otillie. Claude, having swept the forest with his musket sights and failing to find fresh targets, finally gives up his perch and slip-slides down the wet rock to the forest floor. And that's the end of turn 4. Let's roll on the Wolfpack event table. That's a 6, which means another wolf arrives at a random table edge. Please, 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 not the western. That's a 4. That means it appears on the western table edge. Damn it! The gloaming is angry tonight. Turn 5 and we're starting with Vermont again. There's just no other choice than to have him get to safety. He heard the faint holler from Brielle and he knows they've got what they came for. He has no allies in sight. He's got a werewolf and a dark wolf nipping at the tail of his coat. He's vacating right now. He races off the table, which means he's able to leap across a ravine and slip away down a hillside and vanish into the night. One survivor so far. Otillie runs back to her doctor and infantryman, spots the new wolf heading straight for them. She raises her musket and fires, and with a roll of 2 + 1, she uses a skill die from the fate pool to re-roll and gets a... No way, man, another 3? Damn! All of her weapons are now unloaded and she's already moved this turn. Dude, just when we thought we were home free, right? Doesn't this game seem to be a decent emulator of real life? Baptiste sprints ahead to prepare to provide cover during the next turn and makes a great sprint check, gaining those extra 4 inches of movement to help him get clear of the woods. The wolves and werewolf all give chase through the deluge, and the newest wolf explodes from the trees and rocks at Otillie. Of course, this wolf rolls great, a total of 16, and tears into Otillie with, oh man, 7 damage. Otillie collapses under the mauling claws, taken to exactly 0 health. But this is crazy. It's the exact reason Gaspard stayed where he was. He sees her go down, calls for help, and then he's right at her side with a bandage and a strange poultice he crafted himself only the day before, and it brings Otillie back to 2 hit points. The medic attribute can literally only help wounded figures that are not down or have been reduced to exactly 0 hit points. Had Otillie taken 1 additional point of damage, she would have very likely died or suffered a permanent injury. Crazy, man, it's just crazy. Claude hears Gaspard's cry for help, drops to 1 knee without moving further, aims through the rain and the trees and the bracken and fires. It's close. That power die is going to be great if it hits. A 3 + 9 and the other modifiers cancel out, so his total is 12, and that's what he needs to hit. Yes! That 9 damage on the power die drops that wolf right at Otillie and Gaspard's feet. Awesome. Claude is definitely in the running for MVP for this match for sure. Brielle almost leaves the map to safety, but abruptly halts and turns to provide support, like the badass grenadier she is. And that's the end of turn 5. Wolfpack event table roll. 8. Nothing happens. Finally, a tiny flicker of hope. Yes. Turn 6 opens with Otillie shoving Gaspard ahead of her. Run! And he does, blowing his sprint checks, only gaining 2 inches of additional movement, wet branches slapping at his head and roots causing him to stumble, but he can see Brielle at the edge of the tree line, waiting with her musket and her savage grin. Otillie limps after her doctor, but instead of sprinting, she stops at the end of her regular movement to reload her musket. Baptiste muscles his way through a patch of difficult terrain and turns to provide covering fire if necessary. The wolves and werewolves surge through the undergrowth, gaining on the warband, unflagging, unstoppable, growling and slipping through the rain like ravenous shadows. Claude moves past Baptiste after a quick survey of the field, feels confident that they're all going to make it safely to the rendezvous, so he drops again to 1 knee and fires at the closest wolf. He uses the last fate die to re-roll the skill die and gets a 7 + 4 and just misses with an 11. Brielle spots a wolf appearing at just the edge of her vision in the downpour, grunts with satisfaction and aims her musket. It was a Hail Mary of a shot to begin with. She doesn't even feel bad about missing. It's just covering fire for now. That's the end of turn 6 and essentially the end of the scenario. Les Chasseurs de Cauchemar are all out of reach of their pursuers and they escape to safety, which is a unit of grenadiers awaiting atop a hill to pour musket and rifle fire down on anything else coming after them. Wow, now that was quite a bit of narration. This video must be stupid long. Anyway, cheers, I need a beer after this. Oh my goodness. Ooh, rye IPA from Founders. A rye session IPA, so it's low ABV. It's like 4.7%. But man, I like rye in beer. Super good. And definitely hits the spot after a cool skirmish match. I mean, come on. Man, what a fun game. Like, I was pretty worried there from time to time, and hey, we have 2 soldiers who didn't make it, or at least we have to roll to find out what's happened to them. But man, there were some cool highlights too, right? Just some epic scenes in there. So maybe you see how the swinginess of using a 2 to 20 number range really results in unexpected results. Results that result in results. Yeah, that's the world we live in. Anyway, I found this to be super fun. So real quick before I sign off here, let's do the campaign shenanigans. The first thing we got to do is roll on the injury and death table. So first we're rolling for Yolanda Scaletta. Oh, no way. A 1? A 1? Damn, that's a huge bummer. I'll be honest, I feel like cheating and re-rolling. And actually, what's kind of really dumb is that I didn't realize you could use any leftover fate pool dice to re-roll these rolls on the injury and death table. So Claude burned that last fate pool die just because I didn't think there was any reason to keep a hold of it after the actual match. There was no real reason for him to even take that shot to begin with. I could let myself just retcon using that fate pool die from Claude and use it now to re-roll this death result from Yolanda. Ultimately, I understand it's just a game and I'm the only one playing it and I could just simply do what I want, but I'll think about it. Let's roll for poor Felice, who did so well but also got bushwhacked. Oh dude, that's a 2! Oh my gosh, the 2 lowest possible rolls? Well, a 2 means we gotta roll on the permanent injuries table. And that's a 7, so she suffers from the jitters now, which means a permanent -1 to her courage. That's a fair and very story apropos result. If I'd been attacked by and fought off multiple wolves and had a werewolf come at me, I'd probably lose a point off my courage stat too. Alright, I think I'm gonna give myself the benefit of the doubt here and retcon Claude's fate die usage, and we're gonna use it to try to negate Yolanda's death. She's Schrodinger's Yolanda right now. Here we go. That's a 4. Alright, I'm gonna go with it. From now on, I know I can save fate dice for these rolls, so that's just another tactical consideration to keep in mind during a game. Okay, last there's the XP points, which everyone gets a point for participating in the scenario, and the group as a whole gained the following experience. A point for investigating 3+ clue markers, a point for killing 5 or more wolves, they put down 8, a point for slaying 1 werewolf, 2 points for getting more than 3 soldiers to safety, and 3 points for securing the missing orders. Awesome, that's 8 more XP points, which we can kind of divvy up as we see fit, as long as no soldier gets assigned more than 3 points in total. So I'll just give everyone 2 XP each. The characters don't really gain anything until they hit 5 XP, so they'll have to go through a couple more matches to see some results from this experience progression. Alright, there you have it. A Silver Bayonet battle report. And a finale to the 4-episode miniseries, which I'll put into its own playlist. I have no idea if this kind of battle report execution is interesting, or dull, or unwatchable, or fun. I just don't know, so you let me know what you think of the format I cobbled together for this thing, and, go play a game, and have some fun. See ya.